UiPath themselves is finally here. This is the session that we all waited for. UiPath Communications Mining. In fact, it's the first demo session, I believe. Hello, Tom.
Hey, Anders.
How are you?
Yeah, very good. Very good. Happy to be here. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Tom. And to all you viewers out there, a big welcome to you. This session is for you. You can bring all your questions to the chat. We will answer every one of you. Tom, is this the first UiPath Communications Mining peak?
Yes, it is actually. So obviously communications mining, formerly Reinfer, an acquisition made last summer. We've just hit general release, general availability. This is one of the first kind of sneak peek, well, not even sneak peek, first kind of like demos of the platform that we've done with and webinars like this. So yeah, super excited to be here.
Looking very much forward, Tom. And maybe you could just introduce yourself in 2 sentences.
Yeah, so my name's Tom Golubowski. I'm part of the commercial team here at UiPath, specifically for communications mining. I'm not super technical, but luckily I'm going to be giving the intro today, and in the next couple of sessions, my colleague Joe, who's super technical, will be giving you all the deep dives into the platform.
But you have promised me that we are going to see the platform today, right?
Exactly that. So I'm going to show the platform and I'm going to give you the high level, and then you'll go deeper on the next couple of sessions. So setting up a bit of a teaser for the next 2 sessions, because those are going to be the ones where you're going to get all of the kind of the detail on the technical side of things. But at least today we're going to do a great introduction, I hope. So yeah.
Cool. And I want to say to Eric, QDF, Murli, Stefano, S, welcome to the stream. They all said hello in the chat. You cannot see those, Tom, but they're all cheering on you.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
So I will switch to your presentation here.
Perfect. Yeah, so I've got some slides to show just to set the scene, right? But obviously, like I said, I'm going to show you the demo, and Anders and I are going to have a bit of a conversation. Obviously, UiPath is a broad platform with lots of different kind of components and products, and all working together to deliver that kind of end-to-end business automation story. But communications mining in particular, obviously the kind of the new kid on the block, is really focused on understanding and kind of actioning communications work, right? So work where you've got emails, tickets, and chats, calls, and in the future, right? All of these kind of channels where the data is primarily unstructured, and how do you get that unstructured data into kind of a structured format that you can use to trigger a robot to complete an action like a human? And communications mining is all about making that capability to turn that unstructured text into structured data really quick and easy for business and automation teams to do without the need necessarily for super technical data scientists and machine learning kind of experts. I mean, I'm going to show a few slides to kind of set the scene, but I guess, Anders, from your experience, have you encountered much unstructured data in your days developing automations? I'm guessing it's probably come up quite a lot, right?
Yeah, it comes up a lot, and I will say that it's a struggle because I have to handle those kind of data. I can do it when it's structured, because then we can make some rules, but it still requires a lot of code or regex patterns. And unstructured data, that's just a mess. And sometimes I must admit I fell short.
No, but you're exactly right. It's when you've got unstructured data, and I'm not just talking right now about communications, but just unstructured in general. You have to, like you say, code these rules, define these rules, work out upfront what you're looking for. There's a lot of effort and a lot of kind of labor involved in just trying to work out how to get that unstructured into a structured format. And really, communications mining is about making that quick and easy. But the first thing I want to say before I go too deep on the actual communications mining piece is, just generally, artificial intelligence, AI at UiPath. AI, well, intelligence in general, right, is the ability to perceive the world around us, right? If we think about what an intelligent being does, an intelligent being can perceive the world and take in information. An intelligent being can then take that information, decide what to do with it, reason, and think about, okay, if I have this information, what I'm going to do. Intelligent beings can then obviously drive an action with that information. So they've perceived it in the world, they've decided what they need to do, and then they're actually going to drive the action. And then importantly, intelligent beings can then learn. And these kind of core capabilities of perceiving, deciding, actioning, and then learning are found across the kind of the UiPath platform. In our kind of discovery side of things, in the discovery suite, all about that perceiving, uncovering, deciding what to do with the information that's presented. And communications mining kind of fits in here, right, in this kind of communications insights piece. So where we have these channels of large, high volume communications, the ability to understand all of that demand, to understand, okay, what are the things that are transactional? What are the things that are taking the longest to resolve? What are the things that have the most amount of people involved or the least amount of people involved? And that intelligence to be able to say, okay, these are great automation candidates. So kind of one angle of this is the ability to understand what's going on in those channels to find automation opportunities. The next angle of this is kind of the ability to emulate how humans work. So obviously we've got all the kind of capabilities around obviously the world-class kind of UI automation, right? That's all about UiPath, and screen kind of capture. Obviously we've got document understanding as well. But where communications mining really comes in is that piece around like humans reading and then having to take an action with that work. So we've got that first piece, which is the ability to understand and look for automation opportunities. The second piece is the ability to kind of copy what humans are doing and then drive an action off the back of those emails with the bots. And then the third piece, right, is having that ability to actually have non-technical people involved in the process and training out these models and actually building these automations. So it goes beyond just being something that's limited to a technical resource. So yeah, appreciate that was a lot of chat, but the point I'm trying to make is, AI is everywhere at UiPath, and nowhere more so than communications mining, with the ability to uncover, emulate, and obviously kind of democratize the technology for the non-technical users. Yeah.
And that sounds really great, Tom. I'm looking very much forward to see the platform. I haven't seen it before, and as I said earlier in the session, this is the first reveal of the communications mining in the public here on YouTube. So I'm very, very honored that you're here, Tom. And we have a lot of going on in the chat. We have Subham. He says that he or she is excited to know what's this new UiPath thing is about. Stine says hi from Denmark. Sempak says hi in Danish, and Dr. Vaibhav says hi in India. Hello, everyone. Just keep the chat going and bring us all the questions. I'm sure Tom can answer. So yeah, just keep it coming.
Yeah,
and Tom, when you say that this is democratizing, is communications mining also about democratizing AI? Can I use it, or can my my friend here who is non-technical use it?
Hopefully, right? And when I show it, hopefully it'll become clear that the idea is that yes, people who aren't necessarily data scientists or aren't necessarily trained in building machine learning models to interpret communications data, you'll have the ability with communications mining to follow kind of the instructions, follow the steps, and train the model as if you were a data scientist, right? That's really important. So I think what's really, really kind of we've seen in a lot of kind of these projects is actually when it comes to the building a model and the project failing, it's often not because the underlying technology has any problems. It's because of the way the model's been trained. For example, if there's too much bias in the training data set, or if it's not representative, it's not got good coverage of kind of all of the data coming in. So the ability to know and understand these things and then train the model in the right way is kind of how the platform guides. But yeah, I think it probably makes sense for me to give a bit more context, and then we'll get straight into it, and it'll come to life, I think, for the audience. But
that's
yeah,
great.
Is that okay? Cool. So I'm just gonna give you a couple of kind of background slides just about the kind of the situation here, right? Which is, communications are everywhere, right? I mean, it's probably quite a silly thing to say, really. The fact that we're even just communicating right now, the amount of work that takes place via email, via tickets, via chats, via calls via Zoom, via Teams, the amount of work that is just facilitating information transfer through unstructured mediums is staggering, right? You know, in kind of the commercial settings, customer service desks, internally, HR, IT, you know, everything is really just facilitated by this communications work. You know, even to the point, you know, we've got a nice slide here that kind of illustrates all the different channels, like a number of different channels where you can find communications, right? Contact center, business services, tax, payroll, HR, e-commerce, right? Communications are, you know, are really everywhere. But as I've mentioned before, the challenge for a lot of organizations is the fact that that data is so unstructured. You don't have the visibility into what's coming in. You know, what, as I said before, like what are the most commonly occurring requests? What are the requests that are really transactional? Where are your customers, you know, unhappiest, and what are they complaining about the most? You know, all of this visibility into the kind of the communications that are coming in is something that's missing because of the unstructured nature of that data. Another key stat that we always look at is like the amount of time we spend communicating as well. Like for me personally, I think my day is literally spent on Zoom, on, you know, on Teams, on emails, and on Slack. And that's pretty much what I do. Like the amount of time we actually spend communicating is staggering as well. And then, you know, the final point here is just you know, the demands on every organization to do better, right? Better customer experience, better productivity, better efficiency. It's only getting you know, more demanding. So you can't necessarily just throw more people at a channel, you know, at handling these communications. You need to look at artificial intelligence and automation to help you to actually scale this capability and automate away some of that transactional work. Yeah, I've got a bit here about kind of those traditional methods. So we talked about it a little bit at the start, Anders, but you know, you see when you're trying to you know, uncover what's going on in these communication channels, you'll often see organizations maybe survey you know, maybe their customers to understand, okay, what are your demands, or they'll take a subset of the emails or a subset of the calls and listen to them and try and understand what's going on. But again, the problem you have there is it's not it's a point in time. It's not a continuous discovery. You're not able to understand trends. You're not able to see how things are changing, and it's also quite time consuming to actually run that survey. The other thing, and that you mentioned this, Anders, right? The keywords and hard coded rules. You know, that requires a lot of configuration, a lot of effort up front. And if things change, they can break, and it doesn't really account for variance, right? So maybe you'll get, if you did it on a keyword where you're looking for an account number in, you know, in a subject line, maybe you'll get 50%. But will you get as much, you know, everything? And, you know, with automation, the more accurate you can be, the more you can automate, the bigger the return on investment, right? And then the final point here is, you know, building something from scratch with data science teams, with machine learning experts is, you know, time consuming, it's expensive, and they're a limited resource that could be spent on other projects. And again, there's that lack of flexibility and scalability. So really the kind of the status quo for email automation, just automating kind of tickets is it's not perfect. So yeah, communications mining underneath. It's I'm getting maybe a bit more technical here. I'll give you a bit more about kind of how it works. So communications mining underneath is kind of built with natural language processing, machine learning, right? Branch of machine learning. I think Mike, someone's mentioned it before, but you probably have all in the chat. You're probably all familiar with all the generative AI that's kind of in the news at the moment. You know, ChatGPT and so forth, all built using NLP to understand human language and understand and turn that into actionable kind of data, right? And communications mining also uses kind of a proprietary large language model to understand the incoming to understand the text. But where communications mining is very different is where generative AI is spitting out it's taking an input and spitting out an output. Communications mining is understanding it, extracting relevant information, all within kind of the guardrails of a fully kind of secure, compliant, and governance kind of led platform that allows you to have kind of full understanding of kind of what the predictions are being made by your models and how you can kind of version them and control them. So it's natural language processing, but really built for the enterprise. So yeah, the final point here is, you know, communications mining is all about understanding all of that demand, understanding what every customer is telling you, tracking over time, seeing how things trend, setting up alerts, being able to measure ROI, and then obviously, most importantly for everyone in this chat, actually automating the transactional work, right? Extracting the relevant structured data so that you can have a robot complete an action like a human would and take that manual processing out of the human's workload. I've talked a lot there, Anders. Did you?
Yeah.
Was there any
No,
questions?
it was great,
Is it
Tom.
useful?
I'm learning a lot, definitely. We have 2 questions.
Yeah, of
We
course.
have the first question from Shrutika. She says that, is there a course on the UiPath Academy yet about this? If not,
Yes.
when can we expect it?
We do have one. Yes, we do have an Introduction to Communications Mining course on the Academy. Unfortunately, our fantastic customer success team at the moment are working on even more courses, even more introduction material, so that everyone can get up and running with this. So yes, we have some stuff, but we can have even more in the near future.
That's great to hear,
yeah.
Tom and Shrutika. You can find it at the UiPath Academy. And to everyone that might not know, UiPath Academy is completely free. I can recommend it. I learned a lot of advanced UiPath there during the last 4 years. So definitely a recommendation from me, of course, to learn about the communications mining, but also UiPath in general. Tom, there's also another question. What is the difference, or maybe overlaps, between the UiPath communications mining and the UiPath document understanding?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually the 2 tools do work in tandem, and we have actually quite a few customers that are using communications mining to understand the incoming email and then passing it over to document understanding to understand the attachment, right? So really, to be honest, that's the main difference, is that communications mining is focused on the short form kind of communication text, like an email, incoming email, the subject and the body, the metadata, and then the document understanding is for effectively the attachments, right? Or just kind of any PDF that you would, or other attachment that you would, other format of document that you would use. But yeah, critically, in terms of these things working together, we can use communicate. So if someone says, okay, here's a copy of my invoice, we could use communications mining to understand the intent of the email, which is they're sending an invoice. And then we could use document understanding to extract the relevant information from that attachment, which would be the invoice, to then kick off an actual automation. So the 2 kind of work together, if that answers the question okay.
That answers the questions perfectly. And it was actually from Anders from Denmark. So thanks for answering.
Perfect. Cool.
And yeah, let's to all the viewers out there, thanks for all the positive vibe in the chat. Just bring us the questions. I will try to have them every 5 minutes or so, and then I'll pause Tom. It's a great presentation here, and then we can ask.
Yeah, I think that for the next section, I'm just really going to get more into the actual how it works, and a bit more about the actual, and I'm going to show a demo as well, right? What I've shown so far has really just been about the context and kind of the problem statements, right? The fact that communications are everywhere, the fact that it's unstructured, the fact that we spend so much time communicating, and the fact that actually there's a lot of value in that communications data. Maybe I didn't even mention it, but you think about how much information you can extract related to your processes, what your customers want, your products, your services. There's so much going on in those communications that it's super valuable to know what's coming in to be able to drive action, right? So
and
now moving on
to sorry, Tom. And I think for a lot of us, it's also a problem not a problem, but it's a challenge to see all of these nice use cases that we can actually use the product for. So I'm also looking very much forward to see that.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got what I'll do is I'll do the demo next, and then I'll get into the use cases exactly, because I think that obviously brings it to life as well. But in terms of kind of how the product works, or how communications mining works, is we've got this kind of nice slide that I'll go through now. And when you first get started with communications mining, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but when you're building a machine learning solution, you have to gather the training data, right, to train the model. Typically in those kind of traditional builds, you'll have a data scientist who will go to the business, define their requirements, also back and forth to actually work out what they're going to try and train the model to look for. They'll then have to gather hundreds, thousands of examples of those different concepts to then train the model, back and forth, reiterate. Lots of time spent actually just training the model to get it to a point where you're happy with it. With communications mining, we don't need to do any of that kind of upfront requirements gathering necessarily to actually start training the model. So when we first get started, we'll connect up to a communications channel. So a lot of our customers will use us kind of with Exchange, for example, for emails. So we'll connect up to that Exchange server. We'll ingest a historic amount of emails, maybe 6 months to a year's worth of emails. And that's kind of it, right? You don't need to then do any pre-labeling or anything like that. Everything else happens within the platform. So what will happen within communications mining is you'll effectively follow a bunch of steps to train the model. So within the platform, there's a number of different capabilities to help with this training, including unsupervised learning to create clusters of similar looking emails, as well as some more kind of specific things about asking you to review random verbatims, low confidence verbatims. Everything within the platform is guided so you can get to that output of a fully trained model, and you've got this kind of score to show you how well the model's doing. So you can get to that output of a fully trained model within a couple of days worth of effort, right? So rather than it taking previously months and weeks and months to actually get something off the ground, with communications mining, you plug it in, you do the training, and then within a couple of days worth of effort, you get to this point where your model is performing really well, and you can see how well it's performing, and then you can then drive the action, which is to start to automate things, right? And you have all that structured data as an output available via kind of API calls, or kind of as an activity within UiPath Studio to define exactly what's going to happen with the robot when it receives that particular request that's been predicted using communications mining. I have an example kind of here of what this would look like in practice. So kind of on the left, we have an unstructured email. In this case, it's someone asking for an address change, maybe in an insurance space. And we'd use communications mining to make these label predictions. So extracting kind of what the request is about. So in this case, policy renewal. In this case, it's also a change of address. And then the relevant entities related to those labels. So the policy number. So in theory, if you think about this like an automation, if the bot would need the policy number to actually kick off the automation, right? So this is the bot would be pointing it at, and this is the structured data that it needs to then follow that process. Similarly, with that change of address, here's the structured data that it needs that we train the model to extract to be able to kick off that automation. But then similarly, we're able to understand some more kind of nuanced information about this. Like this is a chaser, right? It's a follow-up. They're telling us that they've sent multiple emails. Now that's important because it's telling us about our processes, and they're telling us that they're frustrated, right? We're extracting sentiment, and that's telling us about our service. So we're able to extract more than just kind of process automation capabilities. We're also able to understand the service that we're delivering and the impact on the customers. I've got a slightly more technical side I can talk to as well, but are there any questions? I'm probably jump into the demo actually.
Yeah, we have some questions circling around. You mentioned in the beginning, like data privacy, governance, GDPR, and all these things. Because I'm using ChatGPT, for example, here, and I don't dare to blast any private data out there. Can we work with communications mining, knowing that these data will stay on tenant level?
Yeah, exactly. So UiPath, so communications mining is part of the UiPath cloud. So you have all of the kind of the majority of all the security that comes with kind of the UiPath kind of cloud. And what's key is as well is that we have a load of kind of permissioning within the platform and a load of other kind of capabilities to help ensure data privacy. So on the GDPR point, one thing we always focus on is shared mailboxes rather than personal mailboxes, because personal mailboxes will require consent, for example, from the mailbox owner, whereas with a shared mailbox, you wouldn't expect particularly personal information in there because it's a shared queue. And then on the piece just around kind of the data and security, so it's part of the UiPath cloud, and we have kind of really strict kind of banking grade credentials because a number of our customers are big European banks. And for that reason, it means that we have to have these really strict controls in place, such as permissioning, which means that only people who could normally access the data can access the data within communications mining. So, for example, if you're an automation developer who normally wouldn't be able to see those emails, we can set the permission. You can set the permissioning at administrator level to make sure that that person can't actually see the underlying messages, even though they'd be building the automations. And that's really important for that kind of permissioning and governance and control piece. We have a load more information as well on this that I can perhaps I can give you, Anders, as a follow-up for anyone who's particularly interested.
That's great, Tom. And
because it is a really important point, right?
Yeah, we have a question circling around that from Ildefons. Thanks for joining, Ildefons. He says, that how is the data privacy managed for the AI NLP models? For example, OpenAI might use the data they get as input for future training.
Yeah, so every single model or all the data is just within your environment. It's not shared across environments, and that's a really good point. And actually, something we've encountered before, where there are examples where if you give some training data, or you give your data across to be used for training data, it then gets used for other clients or other examples. That doesn't happen with communications mining. Everything's controlled within your environment. Your data doesn't, your predictions that are made with your data won't affect other customers, other clients, other tenants, other environments at all. So yeah, it's all contained.
Great. When we have 2 more questions before we continue with this presentation. Thanks to all you viewers out there. If you want to help this stream, if this stream helps you, you can always give it a like. That is very appreciated. We will have this stream come out tomorrow if you would like to help in that. Then Ildefonsi says, also, is there an on-prem version for this?
So at the moment, it's only available with the Automation Cloud, UiPath Automation Cloud, so it's SaaS. So we don't have an on-prem version. That's primarily because of the power of the machine learning models behind all of this. It just doesn't work very well when deployed on-prem. In specific use cases, there are options to deploy to a virtual private cloud. So if you've got a customer or a client and it's super important that there's obviously that kind of data kept on their own cloud, we can have that conversation, absolutely. But primarily this is, at least if you wanted to access it today, it would be through the Automation Cloud. Yeah.
Cool. And then Eric says, greetings. Has this solution been deployed on the customer side? Thanks, Eric, and welcome to the stream, Eric. I think Eric wants to take a look at this.
Yeah, we've got loads of customers actually, and that's kind of one of the reasons why Reinfer ended up joining UiPath, is because we had a lot of joint customers that were using Reinfer, right, previous name for communications mining, to interpret the emails coming in or the tickets coming in, and then they were using UiPath unattended bots to actually complete that automation. And because we had quite a few customers that were doing this already, it was a natural fit for UiPath to say, we want this part of our platform. This is the next big thing for us. So yes, we have a number of customers that are doing this today, which is great.
Great, Tom. I hope that was answer, Eric. Otherwise, let us know in the chat. And Tom, that was the last question for now. I really hope that we get a lot of more questions.
Perfect. So I'm gonna jump, I think, into the demo next, and then I'll come back to a bit more about use cases. What you're seeing on screen is a slightly more technical version of the slide I just showed, which is when we ingest those communications. We parse them, we comprehend them, and then we have that unsupervised learning, as I said before, to create the clusters. And then you do the training, you validate, you report, and then you look at the reports and you get that unstructured data as an output. But I think I'll show this demo and it'll make it a lot more clear. So let me just
and not that your presentation was bad or anything, but I think this is the moment that we all look forward for this presentation. Tom will rejoin with his communications machining, so it's only me now that will carry the stream. Tom disappeared for a few seconds and he will come back. Thanks a lot for all the great questions. Tom is back here again.
Sorry,
Tom?
No
problem.
Challenge there, but we're back. It's all good. We keep moving.
And Tom, while you find the demo, QDF asks, is it possible to experiment with communications mining from the UiPath Community Edition?
It's not at the moment. At the moment, it's only available through kind of the enterprise licenses or the enterprise cloud deployment. So if you want to experiment, there's a couple of options that we've got. So potentially, if you have a use case in mind, speak to kind of the UiPath account manager, and we can do maybe a POC or a kind of trial that way. We will be having in the future more capabilities to actually try it out for yourselves in that kind of more of a community feel. But at the moment, we don't have that, and I can't commit to when that's going to come. But yeah, I understand that when you see these things, you want to play around with them, and there are options at the moment, but we'll have more in the near future. I hope that answers the question. Okay, it's probably not the best answer.
Yeah, QDF, was that enough? Please let us know in the chat. And Tom, you can just press hide on this little down here. Yeah, then we can see your entire screen.
So you should be able to see communications mining now. I can't see you anymore, Anders. So can you just confirm you can see it, right?
We can see it, yeah.
Perfect. And I have to apologize. My dog has just started barking, so it's the wrong time, isn't it? But if you hear him, that's
True.
that's kind of annoying, but oh well. So what I'm going to show you now, obviously, is communications mining, right? And I kind of set it up a little bit with that slide I showed before, but I'm going to show you first of all kind of what happens when you first get started. The data that's been ingested, we can see here that it's been parsed and it's been split out into different emails. And then I'm going to show you a bit about the training, kind of focusing first on that unsupervised learning. And then I'm going to focus on how we actually validate some of these predictions. And then I'm going to show you a little bit about kind of actually how do we, what's the output of this? What do we do with this information? How do we then enable an automation to be built? I'm not going to show too much on actually building any automations off the back of this. That's going to come in the future sessions that are going to be done with my colleague Joe.
And maybe I just can interrupt you here, Tom.
Yeah, go ahead.
I will post the links for the next week session, which will be much more practical. This session today is practical, but we'll continue next week to dig down further in communications mining.
This is just going to be a quick overview, right? And we're going to obviously do those deep dives later. And so if there are any real questions, specific questions on like how things work, save those for next week, because Joe, who's one of our fantastic solution architects, will be more than happy to answer the more technical questions. So what we're seeing here is communications mining when we first get started. The data that we've uploaded in this case, we've got about 113,000 emails that we've uploaded via our Exchange integration. And these emails are from kind of an insurance underwriting administration mailbox, right? It's all demo data, but the point is that we've got a number of emails that are all kind of unstructured. And there's things in here where people are asking for change of address, they're asking for renewals, they're asking for claims. It's a lot of different work. And importantly, it's a mixture of kind of transactional work, but also complex work. It's a mixture of things that people are asking for that's all unstructured. And in the platform, we can see here we have on the left a load of filters that we can apply. Not so relevant at the moment because we haven't trained out the model yet, but we have a load of filters. And then at the top, we have all of our tabs that are all our features of the platform that we can kind of use and we will use through this demo to actually kind of explore the model, train the model, and kind of some of that governance piece as well. So yeah, as I said just now, this is kind of when we first get started. We've uploaded a bunch of raw emails. Nothing's been trained, nothing's been pre-labeled, nothing's been done so far. We have the emails kind of in the context of their thread, right? That's really important for kind of thread analytics later on. And we have loads of metadata associated with these messages. So we know when the emails were sent, how many people are in the thread, the kind of the time between the emails, who sent the emails. And we have the ability to pull metadata from other systems. So for example, in e-commerce, we have customers that will pull in spend data from their CRM. So then later on, when they want to actually understand, okay, what are our new customers talking to us about, or what are our new customers complaining about, they can then segment the data, segment the conversations to say, oh, okay, all of our customers that are spending under this amount of money or this amount of spend are all complaining about delivery. Maybe delivery is a reason why they're all like not repurchasing. So maybe we should fix delivery. It's giving them that insight to actually be able to drive change, drive transformation through discovery from what's going on in the communication channels, right? But yeah, I digress a little bit. What we're seeing here is kind of the unstructured, unlabeled emails that we've uploaded into communications mining. I'm going to switch now to actually the training, right? This is what we need to do first, right? And to do that, I'm going to this train tab at the top. So the train tab is actually something we've launched recently to help make it even easier to actually train the model when you're not necessarily a kind of a data scientist or a machine learning kind of expert, when you're more of a business user who knows the data, who knows what the data is about and how you can train the model with your expertise. So within this train tab, communications mining is giving me a few different examples of things that I can do to train this model, right? Or start training this model. On the left, we can see a model rating that's not even showing anything yet because we haven't trained the model at all. And we'll be able to see as we start to train the model, how many verbatims we've reviewed, how many labels we've applied, and how much of the data we've actually had to review in order to train the model, right? So the first thing communications mining is telling me is, can you upload a taxonomy, right? Can you upload a predefined list of labels that you want to look for? And this is optional, right? If I have it in advance, if I know what categories I'm looking for, great. If I don't, fine, we don't need it. So I'm going to skip that for now. the next thing it's asking me to do is to start reviewing clusters. And this is what I was saying earlier about those unstructured learning. So what communications mining has done is it's looked through all of those emails, all of those 113,000 emails, and it's created a cluster of similar looking emails, right? Similar looking emails that all have similar wording. So I can start to label en masse and apply that training quicker. So yeah, does that make sense so far, Anders? Just to check.
100%
it's clear.
sure.
Perfect. And this is where I can start doing the training, right? So here, a subject matter expert, the idea is that they would say, okay, they would read all of these emails and they would know instantly what they're about because they're a subject matter expert. They work in this team. Okay, these are all related to quotes, right? Maybe for life insurance. Hit enter, hit apply, and you can kind of see it's hierarchical because we could have multiple different types of quote email. For example, if someone was asking for a quote for pet insurance, right? We can have different levels, but in this case, they're all related to life insurance. So I've applied that label and I'm giving communications mining 6 examples of what a life insurance quote looks like. And you can see the model's already started updating
Tom,
and learning from this.
Oh, sorry, Tom.
Go ahead.
When you said that you were giving communications mining 6 examples, how did these 6 come up on the screen? Weren't that communications mining itself that presented these 6 for us?
Yeah, so communications mining itself presented these 6 emails or 6 messages or verbatims that all look similar, but it doesn't know what they're about. It doesn't know that they're quotes. It doesn't know that they're related to life insurance. It's up to me as an SME in my own business language to say, okay, these are all related to life insurance quotes. And I can move on to the next cluster, right? This is a claim related to medical expenses. So again, in my own business language, I can say this is related to claims and this is related to medical, right? And bear in mind, I might spell it wrong, or I might get it wrong, or I might, might want to change it later. All of that's possible, and I could show you that in a minute. But the idea is that I'm just giving it training examples of what medical claims look like. Maybe, for example, this one isn't a medical claim. Could very simply remove that label. Obviously, it is, but for the purpose of this demo, let's pretend it isn't. We can give, we can be really kind of dynamic with our training. And maybe every time we receive a claim for medical, it's super urgent. We can also apply that label as well. We can basically, give the model kind of the training to capture everything we want to capture that's going on within these emails. And I can cycle through to the next cluster. And here, for example, I can see actually there's some policy numbers, right? And so I can decide kind of upfront and kind of decide what custom entities I want to extract, and then start to train the entities as well. So in this case, I've defined 3, but I can define whichever ones I want, and as many as I want, really. And in this case, I'm just highlighting policy number to give communications mining a training signal that this is what a policy number looks like, right? And I could apply labels as well to this if I wanted to. Payment, whoops, I can't spell, payment paid, right? And the idea is I'm just trying to capture everything that's going on. And the first step in this is cycling through these clusters, looking at kind of the similar looking messages to apply labels en masse. Is that make sense? Okay, Anders? Are there any questions for anyone in the chat?
100%. And there's not any chance that communications mining can do these labels itself?
No, so it doesn't do the labels itself. We do have a couple of kind of pre-trained labels. So for example, like chasers and more quality of service related, but for the specifics of kind of the actual kind of the business language, nothing's pre-trained. And we believe that's important because every single team, every single business will have their own language for describing what the different messages are about. So it's important that you're able to capture that. Even in the same organization, between teams that do the same work in different geographies will have slightly different ways of describing slightly the same thing. So the ability to actually define in your own business language what these messages are about is super important. And it's one of the ways that we have architected the platform to be able to capture. But yeah, so with this actual this clustering, it typically takes in this case it probably take me about 20 minutes to go through all of them. And as the more you go through it and the more you train, you'll be able to see communications mining growing in kind of the amount of labels that have been reviewed and the amount of labels that have been applied. And it will start to spit out more examples of training that you can follow to actually improve the performance of the model. So for example, here it's saying now to start reviewing random verbatims. I can give that a click, and now it's just giving me random ones that I can start to apply labels to if I want to. In this case, I would call this a renewal, right? And I would highlight the account, the policy number. So hit done, on to the next one. And the idea is that you basically follow the steps, follow the training, and it would take a couple of days worth of effort to get you to a point where your model is kind of performing really well, and is trained to start to actually recognize and predict these concepts accurately. We have a couple of like more in-depth versions of this. So for example, Discover is a slightly more detailed version of that clustering that I showed before, where we can increase the size of our clusters if we want to, where we can even kind of search keywords to create clusters. Bear in mind, though, if you're searching on keywords, communications mining will realize this is kind of a bias in your training, and it will pick that up and it will say things to you later and say, hey, I think cancellation, there's some bias in there because you trained it using keywords. So it has that ability to recognize how you've trained things and actually catch mistakes, because there are so many different ways to say I want to cancel, right? You could say I want to leave my policy, I want to end my policy. You don't actually have to use the word cancellation for it to be a cancellation. So yeah, I'll pause there and I'll switch to a training model in a minute to show you a bit more detail. But yeah, Anders, is this okay? Are there any questions in the chat?
This is extremely cool, Tom. I'm very much a fan already. And if you have any comments to Tom here in the chat, please let us know. What do you think about communications mining so far and Tom's presentation?
So
And
what I've
also
switched.
questions.
Oh, sorry.
We also answer all the questions that will come. And back to you, Tom.
Yeah, happy to answer all the questions. And so what I've switched to now is a model it's a bit more mature, that's been trained out. And you can see here, I'm in the same train tab. It's the same data, but it's actually a model that's been reviewed and labeled. You can see here, we've only reviewed about 1% of the data, and the model is already performing a rating of 80, right? And there's some explainability for how this is calculated, and I'll show that in a minute. But you can see here some of the more nuanced and more kind of specific training that communications mining is giving me once the model is a bit more mature. So particular labels, it's saying you need to go a bit deeper because it thinks it's got quite low confidence on those particular labels where it thinks precision is wrong, and even more examples of kind of inconsistencies, right, and maybe in the labeling. And this is when the model's been trained out a bit more and it's a bit more mature. But when you're happy with how the model's performing, this is the kind of the exciting bit where you can actually really start to explore what's going on in the data. So I've now switched to the reports tab, and on the left you can see all of the entities that we're extracting, so all of the kind of key data points, so address line, city, town, email addresses, whatever it may be. Again, all of this is customized and you can define yourself, right? And then all of these intent labels. So we have a number of labels here that are related to reason for contact, like claim confirmations, payments, but also here some that are related more to kind of the process, right, or the kind of the describing what's going on. It's complaints, right? So things can be complaints, but they could also be related maybe to claims. And then we've also got examples here where people are requesting documents. All of these different intent labels that describe what these emails are about. And in the middle, we can see kind of a proportionate breakdown of all of the different labels. So we can see in policies, the highest volume is renewals. In policy amendments, we can see address changes as the highest volume. We can see in claims, we're getting a lot of motor claims, property and home. We can really explore the data and find out kind of what are the highest volume labels, how are things changing over time. We can set that maybe to more of a weekly, so we can see if there are any spikes in particular weeks. Maybe we're getting spikes potentially in claims in particular times. We can look at segments as well. So we can look at, okay, who is sending us the most amount of emails about particular things? What's kind of interesting here, right? So if we look at our taxonomy, we can see that we're getting a lot of emails or a lot of people talking to us about payments, and particularly payments where they're having an error, right? So they haven't been able to pay us because there's been an error. That's a problem in our process, right? That's an issue. So if we look at the segment view and we actually look at where those are coming from, we can actually start to understand that a lot of our payment errors are coming from one particular source. Now, for a process excellence or a transformation leader, this is gold, right? This is telling us the root cause of this pain point for our customers. If we go and investigate why they're having this problem, maybe they've got an outdated system, we don't know. But if we go and investigate, we can find that out, we can fix it, and then we can use communications mining to track and measure and see how that demand reduces over time. And we can then calculate the ROI of that initiative. So it's quite powerful in terms of what we can discover with the tool. the final thing I'm just going to say before questions is, if you're an automation developer, you're probably thinking, okay, this is great, but what can I automate, right? That's the most important thing. What in here can I automate? So we can apply some of these thread filters, for example, to find the transactional work. So if I applied thread number of messages and I applied, 0 to 2, so email comes in and then email goes out and it's been resolved, we'll see that the tree map and the kind of the reports will update, and we can see that policy renewals is our highest volume transactional request. So for the automation COE and for automation leaders, this is giving you a pipeline of end-to-end automation opportunities that you can then put into action, right? Which is really important for actually understanding what's going on in this mailbox and where you can drive the most amount of value and kind of time savings. So yeah, any questions, Anders? Is this anything you want me to show
Tom,
a bit more detail on?
It looks extremely cool. What I personally like the most, I think we all have different preferences, is this whole business intelligence aspect where I can just analyze the pain points and do something about it.
Exactly that, right? And there's a lot to be said for the training, right? That's a really important part of the platform, and it gets you to this result much, much quicker. But the actual intelligence piece is super powerful in this. The ability to, for example, maybe you could track product feedback and find out what's going on with your product, see how things are changing, see if people are complaining about particular products, right? To look at your kind of revenue opportunities. Where are you making money? In this example, maybe it's from their quotes that they get, right? So where are the quotes coming from? Who's sending us the most amount of new business quotes? It's giving us all that intelligence that maybe we didn't have before on our communications channel, that we can then use to drive improvements, efficiency, productivity, and so forth. So yeah, I'm going to talk, I think, next a little bit about the automation side of things, because obviously
Tom,
everyone cares about that a lot. But yeah,
can I interrupt you for 10 seconds?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because we have people here, since it's a stream, people might come back. We also have Sirufs ask us if this sessions will be recorded. Yes, it will. And it will be on this very URL, so you can always come back or rewind if things goes too fast. Then the video is designed for that. And Atishai just joined the stream. Hello and welcome. I have one question. Is communication mining available for all the users, like the community version? I know we talked a bit about that.
So
in the
not at the moment, unfortunately, not at the moment, and that's just because we've got there's other kind of product priorities at the moment, but it's not at the moment. So through enterprise license, you can get a hold of it, and you can use. I don't know if anyone on the call would be familiar with the AI units. That's how you use them for document understanding, kind of the other AI products across UiPath. If you're a customer of UiPath on an enterprise cloud agreement, and you have AI units, you can switch it on today and start using it right now. But other than that, if you've got interest, just contact your kind of UiPath account manager, and we can work out how we can do some sort of POC or trial for you. But then in terms of the community edition, I can't make any promises because it's not my job, basically. But the goal is to get this in the hands of as many people as possible. So
of course,
hopefully,
as you say, was that answer
soon.
enough? And back to you, Tom.
Yeah, perfect. So in terms of actually like the automation, and Joe's going to go into a lot more detail with this later on, but the example of what the kind of the data would look like after the predictions have been made would be something like this. So we'd have kind of the raw email, we'd have a set of label predictions with the confidence scores as well, and then we'd have a set of entities as well with the confidence scores, kind of all the structured data that you would need to actually enable this automation. So for example, to point this at a bot that handles address changes, and then give it the relevant information of the policy number and the new address to be able to kick off that process. This is effectively what it would look like. To be able to validate and make sure that your predictions are correct, we have this validation tab. So in here, we get a slightly more detailed version of some of the training that I showed before. So how the recommended actions would look. You can look at recommended actions for particular labels. So for example, this review update is being flagged as it's not very good, or it's not performing very well. So we could, we could tune that up if we wanted with the recommended action. We can see some of the behind the scenes stuff like mean average precision and precision recall. We get a lot of detail within this validation tab to be able to understand the predictions and to be able to make sure that we're happy with how it's performing. So for example, on that renewal concept, we can look at that, see that it's performing well, 95% average precision, and we can tune a confidence threshold and the precision recall, which is then relevant to actually the automation that would be achieved. So in this case, it would get it right 97% of the time, but it would leave 11% for manual processing. So yes, can you still see my screen? Okay, sorry, my laptop just isn't running.
Perfect. We see it
Perfect, cool.
very clearly.
And the way we would set up the stream, and Joe will go into a bit more detail with this later, is within kind of this streams tab. So we would call it something like a renewal automation. And then we point it at a version of the model that's performing well. Again, similar to what I just showed, we'd filter on that renewal concept. And then we would tune it for that precision recall, as I mentioned before, publish that, and then it would be available as an activity. And I've got one already that I did before, but that would be available as an activity within UiPath Studio to actually build the automations on the back of that.
And what Tom is talking about here that Joe will show us, that's because in next week we will have Tom's colleague Joe coming here for a very technical session. I posted a link here in the chat. It will also be below the video. So continue next week if you want to know more about the technical aspects, how you can integrate it in UiPath Studio as well.
Exactly that. So the kind of the final things to show for this demo. Sorry, I said that was the final thing, but there's just two more quick things. Because I think I've talked about it before about the kind of the sentiment piece. We have the ability to enable sentiment on a data set. So what I'm going to show you now is an example of a data set for some hotel reviews where we've enabled sentiment. You can kind of see the red and the green and the yellow for kind of positive, negative. So we can enable that, which can then help you to drive automation. So for example, if you receive emails that are particularly negative, that could trigger an automation to escalate that to a customer care team member, for example. So we have the ability to bring sentiment into the predictions. And as well as that, we also have something called quality of service. Now, quality of service is pretty cool because we can not only use sentiment, but we can also use effectively like label scoring to actually attribute a score to a particular concept. So for example, if you receive an email or an email chain and there's lots of escalations, lots of chasers, we can give that a negative score, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be negative sentiment, but if it's a negative kind of experience for the customer, you can have a negative score. So when that threshold drops below a certain level, again, that's another option for automation. We can have an automated action be triggered when that quality of service drops below a certain level or it goes above a certain level. So then you can build kind of more sophisticated automations. So for example, we have customers that will monitor both sentiment and quality of service. When things drop below a certain level, it will then trigger a robot to then create a case in the customer retention team or customer care team's kind of workflow queue to actually reach out to that customer and find out why they're having challenges to prevent that problem from escalating, prevent that problem from getting worse. So we have the ability not only to use kind of the extracted information, but also some of this more nuanced kind of tone and service and kind of sentiment piece to actually drive automations as well. So yeah, any more questions? That's kind of it from the kind of the high level demo.
Tom, we have one question. Maybe we can say that this is the second last. So if one of you others will have the last question, you have 2 minutes to type it in the chat, and we can take the second last question here, Tom. QDF123, thanks for the question. QDF says, how exactly does interfacing with a mailbox work? You need to enter some API permissions, or how does it work?
Yeah, so we have you can use the APIs to kind of connect up different systems, or we can use robots to move data into the platform, or for Exchange and for Salesforce and for others, we have an out-of-the-box integration. So for those, you effectively just put in credentials. So you create credentials like communications mining at mailbox.com, input the credentials, and then communications mining can access it like it was a human to actually read those emails. So what's important is the colleagues don't work from communications mining day to day. They still work from their normal workflow tool or their normal inbox. It's just that communications mining accesses kind of at server level to read everything, categorize everything coming in, and then divert it to a bot if necessary, right? If that's been set up. So yeah.
Cool, Tom. And it appears that was the last question. Tom, thanks for an outstanding session. I'm very curious. I would love to dig deeper in this tool myself, and I will also take the course at the Academy. Again, we can repeat that there is a communications mining course at the Academy. You can just find it and it's free. Just search for it there. And we are back with more communications mining next week, more technical. Thanks to all you viewers for all the great engagement and questions in the chat. And thanks to you, Tom, and UiPath Communications Mining.
Thanks, Anders. We have some content on use cases that we can talk about next time as well. But yeah, thank you very much for the session.
See you all.